Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. We're previewing the Brentford match. Let's get started. Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at Jacinio Tweets and at She Knows Arsenal. Welcome. We are previewing the Brentford match. And I know I'm a little bit late to the party. I probably should have done this a little bit earlier, but hey, better late than never. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we're going to go ahead and preview the match and also talk about some other things surrounding Arsenal. There's always something going on. And yeah, it's a rematch of probably one of the most embarrassing things that's happened to us this season. Let's keep it 100. I remember that we were so excited to start the season. Brentford away was the match that we were supposed to be excited about because we knew we were going to play Chelsea and Man City away very closely afterwards. This was the one that we were going to do our thing. I remember everybody being so excited about the lineup because even though we didn't have Lacazette and Aubameyang, we had this young lineup out there. It was gonna pop. We had Balogun out there and Saka and ESR, and it was Martinelli, I think, was out there as well, and we got bopped. And it was just dang, this is really embarrassing. And I think we did a watch along for that, and it was brutal, with a capital B. So I think this is a game of vengeance, really. We need to go ahead and take care of them and take care of them early because I kid you not, that and Everton were probably the most sickening games this season because you just know we should have won those games. And, it's just one of those. But since then, Brentford hasn't really been pulling up trees. I mean, obviously they're clear of relegation. They look like they're going to survive, but they haven't been amazing. And so this is a game that I would expect us to win, but we know with the Arsenal, expect the unexpected, and the unexpected and the expected is kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to bring Souls in now and we're going to get started. Hey, Souls.
Hey, Jess, how you doing?
I'm good. I can't complain. So, Brentford at home. Yeah, but actually first, before we get to that, Arteta kind of talked about in his press conference, how they had to do half training in and half training out. I know you were saying backstage that you're not getting blown away, but how crazy is it? From where I'm sitting right now, looking at the videos that people are putting out there of trees falling and parts of their backyard just coming up out of the air and flying across the street. People literally are getting blown away. What's going on over there?
Yeah, the Storm Eunice, or I don't know how you pronounce it, but yeah, it's more towards down south and London area, more than we're affected. We're more, even in Manchester, we're a bit more middle. We're not so Midlands, but we're not so on the coast either, so we're not affected that much. We get a lot more rain, and yeah, yesterday the winds were bad, worse than what we get, but I mean nothing compared to what America's had. You've had tornadoes and whatnot, but we just suffer from the wind. But yeah, it's been bad because even the O2 Arena, quite famous, but even the roof of that's been basically torn off, and they're gonna have to do everything up on there, reconstruct that before they can open that up again. So it's a bit of a up in the air. There's been a lot of power cuts throughout the country. Not far from where I live, there's a power cut as well, and they don't really know when that's going to get fixed. So yeah, it's a bit crazy at the moment. People's roofs are coming off. There's trampolines flying around. There's wheelie bins everywhere. Yeah, a lot of advisories not to go out if possible, just because they don't really know what can fly into your face, I guess. So yeah, there's a bit of a madness going on.
What can fly into your face? I mean, not what can it just fly into your face? Literally a tree can fall on your head. It's literally insane. I seen somebody's kitchen table had bricks and all kind of stuff from their roof just caving in. I was yeah, this is intense. intense. Like the things that I've seen is like, wow.
I'm
Like,
just hoping the games don't get called off because it's been a long time since we watched Arsenal play. So I'm just hoping it's not that bad that they have to call games off. But we know what stadium infrastructures are like, and they're very fragile. So we don't know. We don't know.
yeah, especially since the Emirates is like kind of crumbling a little bit. I mean, but Vinay did say during like the fan forum that they're going through like a multi-million dollar like refurbishment of like the Emirates, which literally needs it. I don't know if you guys have seen, but like when you look at the Emirates and then you take a look at SoFi Stadium, I literally think that the Cronkies can put some money into the Emirates and like make it look more decent. Like it's actually embarrassing. You've only been to the Emirates once though, right, Souls?
Yeah, against Watford 1-0 to this season. It was shocking. There was like tennis balls and like whatnot in the logos and the legends like banner thing on there. That was all faded. And to be fair, it does need a refresh. We're like very, very backdated. Again, it seems to be a common theme within the big clubs really. Like even United doesn't look that. I mean, it's all glass at the front, so it's not really hard to get that dirty. You just got to clean it. But when you look at their sort of structures at the top, it's not white anymore. It's very dirty. So it just seems to
Mm.
be a common trend with the traditional big teams. We don't really have the digitized like screens and stuff, which rumors suggest we are getting. So we do need it. If we want this big club, we need to look like a big club as well. So hopefully they can get this refurbishment right. And it's like 10 years too late, but I guess like never
It's
late
like
than
better late than never.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. So, I mean, yeah, we definitely need some sort of zhuzhing up, but just kind of keeping on theme for tomorrow. I was listening to Arteta's press conference, and he was talking about the availability of certain players, and I don't think we there was anything that we didn't know that he talked about. Mostly, he talked about Martinelli and Tomiyasu, but what he said was that Tomiyasu is not perfect, but he's in contention. And I've seen pictures of him in full training, because before that, he was basically training on his own. And we know since Tomiyasu being in the team, he's been one of the most important players to kind of like this resurgence of Arsenal this season. And we've missed him. But I also think that Cedric, surprisingly, did a good job against Wolves. And so I'm feeling a little bit more okay, just in case, I was already kind of in my mind thinking Tomiyasu wouldn't be ready. But if he is in contention, and we know how important this game is because we need to just kind of keep up, we need to keep getting points on the board. For you, would you I mean, it's Brentford at home. Was not to say that it's an easy game, but when you look at our games kind of going forward, playing against Wolves at home, playing against Leicester at home, playing against Aston Villa away, playing against Liverpool at home, Watford away, is it worth risking him knowing how long we've been without him because we rushed him back for the Liverpool match?
I don't. It's a tough one because when you're looking at sort of stylistically against like if we're looking at Brentford and Wolves, you're looking at more Cedric type wing back. That's someone who can support in attack because they do like to play this 3-5 back formation, and we know there's going to be numbers in defence. And Saka's always an isolated winger, which Odegaard does support. But if we can get the numbers up there, then at least it gives another distraction to the defenders to allow Saka a little bit of room. So it's a tough one because the question really comes to, do we need to risk him, and also it's a question of, can we do without him? And I do think we can, and I don't think we need to risk him. So the question comes down to, unless he's fit, like as in he's actually fit to play, then yeah, play him. Otherwise, I don't think we need him in these two games because we need someone who can give us an attacking outlet and someone who can support the attack more than the defense. Because that's kind of why we won the Wolves game, was because Cedric was a distraction or an overlapping runner who allowed defenders to move out of position to give Saka that inch of yard or just that extra space to be able to run in behind him. So I don't. The question for me is this more: if he's 100%, play him. If not, then don't play him because we don't actually need him. But against Watford, I do think we need him because they play the four back formation and they will have that overload in attack. Leicester do the same. Then you're looking at Liverpool and Aston Villa. They're all attacking sides. So I think not to risk him in the next two, maybe give him cameo performances like 20, 30 minutes, see how he does, and then kind of build it from there because it's not important for the next two games to play him, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, if Arteta's saying that he's not perfect, for me, that means that he's probably not 100%. This might have been his first, training session with everybody. And for me, because of the run-in being what it is, and we know how important these games are going to be for us, it doesn't make sense to risk him this time. And Cedric did a good enough job against Wolves for me to make it feel okay for maybe him to play or somebody else. So we'll definitely talk more about what it would look like if we did not go with Tomiyasu and went with somebody else. But I think we're kind of in agreement that Tomiyasu is so important, so let's not risk him. And we're good enough, even without him, to go ahead and get the 3 points against Brentford at home. Arteta also talked about Martinelli, who we know is going to be suspended because of his red card against Wolves. And I thought what really stood out to me about when he was talking about it was that they asked him about, like, what are you going to do? And essentially he said that the club is going to talk to the PGMOL about it, that he had gotten some videos sent to him and, of different instances where a referee took a different approach to somebody fouling or doing 2 yellow card worthy fouls in one play. But he also said that Arsenal should stop talking about the red cards. Like, let's stop talking about it. Let's not make it a thing, and not to adopt a victim mindset when it comes to the refereeing. And then over the last kind of couple of days, we've seen like different kind of statistics come out about Arsenal and how many red cards we get in comparison to other teams. And so I saw this pop up, and I think this is from Goal. And this shows, like, since December 26, 2019, the fouls that we've made per red card. And it's pretty staggering because we are by far the most red carded team by a long distance. We have the least fouls per red card in the Premier League since Mikel Arteta's first match in charge. And so what that basically says to me is that we're not really malicious, or not malicious. That's not the right word. We're not dirty. We don't play dirty. We don't really go in and tackle hard. And we know that because we've asked for years for them to be more aggressive, right? But we get the most red cards. So for you, like, are we just stupid, or are we being treated unfairly, or is the answer somewhere in between?
It's in between because there are some where I'm like, why did we do that? Like Nicola Pepe headbutting was a Klitschko against Leeds, and then when you look at Xhaka's against I can't remember where he like put his throat
Burnley.
around. So yeah, Burnley, and then when you look at the one where I will say was a bit unfair was the Xhaka City one where he didn't really do anything. Like yeah, if he had hit Cancel, it would have been a really bad foul, but it didn't happen, and it was like intent. And I've been saying this, like I've seen so many with the intent, and yellow. Not even Kane is a perfect example against Robertson, and nothing was done. And for me, it's just I'm just asking for the consistency to be. But at the same time, there are things we have done where I'm like I can't really say anything because Xhaka shouldn't have done that. Martinelli's okay. I don't, the thing is, the rules are so unclear with the Martinelli situation that I don't really know what the answer is. But if I'm looking at it from sort of a logical standpoint, yeah, there are 2 yellow cards, but it's in the same phase of play, and the rules do suggest you need to be aware you're on a yellow card. And if the advantage is played, then that's still in the same phase of play. So but then at the same time, I'm like, he did push him, and that could be looked at violent conduct, and that could have been a straight red card. So we at the same time we need to stop doing stupid things because we do have a reputation, and that's the problem. We've set ourselves in such a corner, we've backed ourselves into a corner where referees will more side with if players do kick off and say he did this, he did, grab my throat or push me or had violent intent, etc. They'll side more on that side because of the perception we've set. But the other thing is, it's like with other teams, they don't really have these like sort of violent moments or these like sort of temperamental moments where
Yeah.
they go in with malicious intent or they go in out of control. They'll do it in a sneaky way or they'll do it in a calmer manner. So it seems like, it's a yellow card offense or a warning or, oh, that's not really like them to do that. But even though they're consistently doing, like Burnley are the perfect example, they are a rougher and a dirtier team, but barely get red cards for it because they
They
just,
literally don't. Like, they have like the longest standing record for not getting, it's been like 3 seasons since they've gotten a red card. They literally
yeah,
don't get them.
yeah, and some of the, I'm not saying the red cards, but the amount of fouls they do is like, surely that's got to be a second yellow now, but they don't get it. So it's difficult because I'm not one of those that wants to sit here and go, oh, the ref lost us the game and cost us the game every single time, because it's just difficult. But I do think we get a harsher treatment, and I don't think many can debate or argue otherwise. But at the same time, we've put ourselves in this situation, so we to be able to overcome this, we need to like calm ourselves down. There's moments where we could have done better, or we could have held back, or we could have, like Xhaka not losing his head, Pepe not losing
Yeah.
his head, Gabriel not losing his head, and we need to stop with the fighting and stuff. And then you look at the David Luiz situation. That's not a red card in my opinion, even according to the rules. It's a stupid rule. But then in the same match, we got another red card where Leno went and Superman punched the ball like halfway, like basically at the halfway line. So it's it's a bit of both. That's the way I see it. I think we've done stupid things, and there are some moments where I'm like, the ref has been harsh. So I don't know. That's the real answer.
I mean, they're all different. I mean, when you look at the red cards that we've gotten since Arteta has been a manager, they're all kind of different. Some of them are similar, but like I would say Pepe and Xhaka's are similar. You know, the hand around the throat at home against Burnley, and the hand around the throat of Alioski from Pepe against Leeds. Like, those are very similar. But then when I think about some like the one that David Luiz got against Manchester City, the first game back after we came back from the break, COVID. I
Oh yeah,
remember
the COVID. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I think he kind of pulled back Riyad Mahrez, and it was a penalty and a red. Um, I just think like some of those I've seen other players do them and they get a
They call
different
it the double
call.
jeopardy rule. You can't. It
Yeah.
can't be a penalty and a red card, but we get the red card and a penalty.
Yeah, because what is it? It's like if you're going for the ball, it's fine. But if you're not, like if you couldn't have gotten the ball, you get the red or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And like he's had a couple of those, I feel like he had the one against Mares where he kind of like pulled him back or whatever, and it was a red card and it was like so embarrassing. I remember he was like drenched, he was all wet, it was crazy. And then he had the one against Chelsea where I think Mustafi made the mistake and then he ended up fouling Tammy Abraham. And then we've seen other choices being made, but we get the harshest penalty. And when I think about it, I think, I think Arteta's spot on about not adopting a victim mentality because I'm not sure it's going to change. What should change is one, like our ability to to do the dark arts and rotational foul, do the rotational fouling and the time wasting. That needs to get slicker. I feel like it's a little clunky because we've never really done it before. So every time we foul, it looks like a red card. We're obviously time wasting. We're not doing it well enough. But when I look back at like Arsenal in general, I've never looked at us as a team that doesn't get red cards. Like the Invincibles, they got red cards
mm,
so much. But the difference is that they were just better than everybody. And I think the better that we get, the less detrimental these decisions will be because we'll be so good that it doesn't matter. The margins are just so fine right now that when we get a red card, it really just switches our ability to really be a part of the game. And so I think we'll get less the better that we are. And it won't affect us that much if we do get them, if we're better. And that's the change that I would like to see is we just need to get better and get better at the dark arts. And I think Arteta was spot on. But like Arteta said, let's not talk about it too much. We got that out of the way. We know Martinelli is just out for one game. And we have other players that can play in those positions. So we'll definitely see what happens. But he also talked about that knee-jerk reaction to the loss against Brentford. And if you just kind of go back to that time, like it was a lot, but then it was like compounded by the fact that we obviously lost the next two games. And I remember some teams were celebrating being top of the league and we were at the bottom, and it was like as if they had won in August. It was really strange. But what do you think that's about? Like the fact that it was it felt like the world had ended, but like now that we sit in sixth place, on the cusp of top four, do the fans have a responsibility not to be knee jerk and to give the team time and give Arteta time and think a little bit more holistically about our results and not be results based, oh my gosh? Or is that just fandom and it just is what it is?
I think at that time, it probably was a justifiable response just because preseason wasn't looking great. We didn't really know where the goals were coming from. We didn't know what the structure was. We didn't really, and I know friendlies and like preseason, that's the whole point of them. We're not really, we're just testing things out. There's going to be game by game. We'll try a high line, we'll try a low block, we'll try this and we'll try that. So it just seems like we don't have a plan, but in reality, we're just trying a few things, tweaking them to see what our game plan should be, or if we've got a plan A, plan B. And obviously, we didn't do well in preseason. Barely any goals, barely any wins, and obviously that then when we come into the season, we looked very underprepared in terms of signings. We didn't do enough at that point in the summer to really justify like how we're going to really propel the season. And we go into Brentford, obviously losing Lacazette and Aubameyang within 2 hours of kickoff, due to COVID. And obviously we didn't have Partey, Gabriel, we didn't have, and then obviously at this point we hadn't signed Ramsdale, so Leno was starting, and it was just a combination of like we lost a lot of key figures in terms of how we were going to play. We lost our, sort of dual monster in the back. We lost our talisman in terms of we were hoping Aubameyang would have turned the season around and come back to being his best. And obviously he was out of that game. Then on top of that, you lose another senior figure in terms of Lacazette. Then as much as we hate him, we lost another senior figure in Willian. As much as we don't like him, but he hasn't been great for us. But it's just every time we look at it, every senior figure we could have had in each phase of our game, in terms of our defense, in terms of midfield and our attack, we didn't have. We had one of the youngest lineups in the Premier League at that point. We had so many debuts to give. We had Florent, Balogun playing up top. We had Ben White coming in. So it's it's one of those where in the moment, of course, everyone's going to react in a negative way. It's 2-0 to a promoted side. It is embarrassing. Like, we should not be the opening of a Premier League game. It should not be a 2-0 battering where we didn't have a chance to win that game. So yes, it's knee jerk, and yes, we should have taken context, but we're fans. We have got an emotional investment in the club, not a financial investment where we can be level headed and kind of wait it out. We're emotional, and that's a
Yeah.
bad loss. So the emotions are going to go up in the air. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
it's a
nobody
bit of both.
expected that, right?
Yeah,
Like, I think that was the
no.
most unexpected result. Like, you know what I mean? Like, nobody
And don't
as
forget, we
as
just finished eighth again. So it was just one of those
yeah,
where we
and the
finished eighth.
transfer window was still open as well. Like, I think that was a big part of it as well, is the transfer window was still open, I think, and
Yeah.
we weren't really getting things done or something. Like, it just
Yeah, like
yeah, because
Ramsdale, we were dwindling around with, and
yeah, exactly. And so if you go back to that time, a lot of people were very like disappointed by the transfer window already. And then so, you spend most of your money on a center back, no midfielder had come in, like it was just Sambi at that time. So I understand why people were upset. And I do think that like fandom is knee jerk. Like that is what it is. Like we're go to react to something. And so it's natural, but it's interesting how things have kind of shifted. And now we're talking about potentially getting into the top four, which if you had kind of went back to that time, you probably would have thought like, what are they talking about? And they also asked him about that. Like, are Arsenal ahead of schedule in the process? Because we're on the cusp of being able to obviously like qualify for Champions League. It's a long ways away, but we're in the conversation. And Arteta said, we have earned the right to be where we are. And I found that to be like very like, okay, yeah, like, because that's how I feel. I feel like we've earned the right to be here and to be in the conversation at this point. But there's a narrative kind of, and I think part of this is rivals priming, the priming it right now before they put the real, coat of paint on there. That the only reason why, if we did get top four, the only reason why is because Spurs and United are so poor. And I wanted to get your take on that because I find it interesting that, like, who cares? Like, for me, like, every season has a team that underperforms or a couple team that underperforms, right? And so that's your opportunity to take advantage, i.e., Leicester winning the league and us not winning it in 2015, 2016, because every other team was kind of in a period of like disarray and the best team took advantage of it. Nobody thinks about that after the fact, right? And so I feel like even if Leicester had gotten into the top four like last season or the season prior, you could have said that like, oh, the only reason why they're there is because Spurs and Arsenal are so bad. But in the grand scheme, Leicester deserved to be there if they got there, right? So what are your thoughts on the whole narrative of we're only there because Spurs and United are poor?
Firstly, I'm going to say about the Arteta thing as well. It's just I quite like that mentality. I am very fond of it. Game by game, you take it and you just prepare for the next one, and that's what I want the team and the manager to do. Yeah, as a fan, we can sit here and say top four's ours, etc. We can go overboard on that, but I want the team to be focused on their next chance because it's very easy for them to go. Now we're getting top four. Let's overlook, Brentford. Let's overlook Wolves. They did nothing to us. Watford, yeah, let's overlook them. Leicester this season, yeah, so it's easy for us to lose focus. And the thing of this narrative of like, United, Spurs, and even Chelsea in the mix at the minute in terms of just not performing to the way they need to be performing. I find it very hypocritical because at the very beginning of the season, no one gave Arsenal a chance, a hoping chance of even finishing in top six and let alone top four. People being very disingenuous that we're not even going to get a Europa Conference League position. We're not going to be in the top seven. We're finishing eighth again. Then at the beginning of the season, relegation threatened Arsenal. Yes, I know it's a bit of banter, but some people actually seriously thought we were getting relegated at this point. And unless we got rid of we got rid of Arteta. Otherwise, this is the demise of Arsenal. And for me, it's always going to be like if Arsenal do anything, it's like the FA Cup when people played it down. They said they got lucky. Arteta fluked it, and when we won the Community Shield, same thing. Our Liverpool were just underperforming. They were weak inside, etc. And then if we do get top four, they're going to say it's going to always be a narrative to why Arsenal do something, not actually well done, Arsenal. You blew our expectations out. With Arsenal that they're the most hated team, even by their own fans. They're never able to give credit because it's agendas over facts, and I've always said it's always going to be whatever their agenda is. Like they wanted Arteta to prove, can he get top four? He'll do it. If let's say he does it, the goalposts will change, but he didn't win the league, he didn't win the FA Cup, he didn't win the Carabao Cup, or he didn't win the European competitions. So yeah, we want him out. So it'll always change to what he's doing. And I just think for the team, there's no point in listening to that. As a fan, we know where we are. We're not a Premier League winning side yet. Will we ever be? Time will tell. We know we can win cups, and yes, it's disappointing to have those early exits, but I just hate the narrative being set. But that is Arsenal, just like Tony says, it's the narrative, the media, from the George Graham era, we knew this. Like George Graham famously said, the media do hate us and we need to stop listening to them. And so, yeah, for me, it is what it is. Like, if we get it, even there's going to be fractions of the fan base that aren't happy because we didn't win something with it. So I don't really care what the fans have to say. For me, it's a brilliant achievement to get top four, just on the context of where we are. Not
Yeah.
that I think this is Arsenal and we're back. I've always said when we start competing for the league and we start competing for the Champions League, that's when I'll say Arsenal are back.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Tony sums it up well, that you have to be good to take advantage of the luck of other teams being bad. And that's kind of what I've been like trying to express is that I understand that other teams are not doing as well as we expected them to do. To be honest, I feel like the only team that really applies there is Man United. I don't think that many people rated Spurs before the season started. I remember a lot of people said that they would finish around the same place that we would. So because their summer business wasn't great and all that kind of stuff, even with Conte. So well, no, Conte didn't come in. So it's kind of like, all right, United's not doing as well as we thought, but we're doing good, and so we're keeping up pace, and so we have to be good to take advantage of it. It's still a long ways off, but I find that narrative to be a little bit strange because it's never really used in any other context. It's only really used towards Arsenal, and I think when you look at the mental gymnastics that some people are trying to do to um in make our challenge for top four invalid, I would say that it comes from fear and the reality that an Arsenal in Champions League is a much different proposition than Arsenal over the last 5 years or so that hasn't been. And the league should be scared. You know, when your rivals get into Champions League and you're not in it, you have to take heed. You have to look at it. It is something that it changes the game. So we're right there in it, and we're in there because we deserve to be there. And I'm really glad, Arteta said that. Yo-Yo said, finished 6 points off of fourth last season without European football. Challenging for fourth should be expected. Getting it still depends on the manager. And that's a good segue into kind of the next topic that I wanted to touch on, which is the journalist asked Arteta about Henri's comment. If you don't know, Henri was asked about Arsenal, their chances of top four, and if Arsenal do not get Champions League, is it a failure? And he said, yes, it's a failure. It's a failure for Arsenal and Arteta if we don't make top four. And it was met with like very conflicting thoughts. Some people felt like he's upholding standards. Remember, this is our legend. This is our guy. This is our face. Beyond Arsene, Henri is the face of Arsenal as we know it right now. And so you could look at it and say that this is somebody that expects us to be where we should be. And so he's upholding the standards of a club that he may feel like he doesn't identify with anymore. And then there's the other side where people feel like he was being overly negative and should have been more cognizant of the fact that we have a young team and there's a lot of pressure and all that kind of stuff, and having your face of your club kind of say, yeah, if you don't make it, it's a failure. That is not really the energy that he should be coming with. What side do you sit on in terms of Henri's comments? And Arteta also said very straight-faced as well that he did not hear those comments or he did not read it. And everybody's entitled to an opinion. And it was very much one of those where I know what he said and I didn't like it. That's what it felt like when I watched him say that. But where do you sit?
It's hard because as much as I don't think it's somewhat in traditional ways, it is failure for Arsenal not to make the top four. But at the same time, you've got to look at the context of the league and how the season actually went. Because if we're looking at, for example, coming into the season, if we're looking at general opinions here, a lot of people probably say we're the sixth, maybe the seventh best team on paper. So it's one of those where if we're the sixth or seventh and we get fifth, for example, and we're very close to fourth, that's not a failure because we're not on paper, we're not better than United. On paper, we're probably not better than Chelsea. On paper, we're definitely not better than Liverpool or City. So we do sit fifth. Now, the argument is whether we're better than Spurs or not. On paper, this is. And that's where the question comes into. So we are the fifth, sixth best team. So to be honest with you, like getting fifth would have been expectation. Getting fourth would have been exceeding that expectation. Getting out of the top five or the top six is where I'd say it's failure because you've got to look at how we are. But at the same time, yes, as a fan base, as even ex-footballers, they have to hold the club to a certain standard to keep the pressure on them to need to go out and invest in this team. So I'm not fussed about it. I do understand where Arteta's coming from. Like everyone has an opinion. At the end of the day, it's one of those where, because Henry is anti-Arsenal right now in terms of KSE, in terms of, I wouldn't say so much anti-Arteta, but he's somewhat against the whole regime at the moment. So it's going to be, Arteta's in a sticky situation where, because of who his employers are and the whole obviously feud with, what's his name now, the Spotify guy. Yeah, they've got that whole
Daniel
feud with,
Eck.
yeah, that's it, Daniel Neck, and the Henri and the consortium, and wanting to take over. It's difficult for him to actually say what he wants to say, and he can't really be obviously in public be seen agreeing with someone who's potentially going to be taking over the club from him. So it's a difficult situation he's put under, and at the end of the day, you know what? Does it really matter what he says? At the end, all he can do is go on the pitch and perform. And if he gets top four, then I want the same energy that people are showing if he fails. And if it's a failure, then I want the same energy if he gets top four. I want him to be praised and actually be applauded and given an opportunity to really do his thing, because he's clearly exceeded expectation at this point. So yeah, that's what I've got to say.
I'm going to read out a couple of these comments. Yo-Yo says he's been here long enough now that now having gotten his preseason and the summer window, that he must do better than his predecessors. Expectations lowered with him. Time to prove KSE right to promote him. Tony says, after the first 3 games, we would have bitten a handoff for Europa. Today, we think we can get top 4. And by the end of the season, things could have happened where we are okay if we come up short. And I think with the fact that there are so many Arsenal fans saying that, and it's not coming from that place of like, where because you hate Arteta, you want to set the expectation so high, so because he's going to fail and then you can be upset about it. It's coming from a genuine place of, I actually could see us getting into the top 4. And so the fact that we have that opportunity, I really think we need to seize it. And I'm sure the club knows that. Like, I'm not sitting here like, I wonder if they know that we have an opportunity. Like, they clearly know that. Vinay has said that they know that we're fighting for top 4. And this is a really good opportunity for us to get it. That being said, if we finish 5th and we're a point off, I wouldn't be upset. I told you guys, like, my bottom line is Europa or bust. But at the same time, when I look at it and I'm like, okay, well, what does that do for recruitment? And I've seen, and this is probably a bigger conversation for another day, but a big summer, we can get players regardless. But when we talk a big summer window, Champions League kind of would put us in a place where we could attract the best possible players. And I look at players that are available. Like, I saw something about what's his name? Gravenberch. He's not re-signing with Ajax. That's a player that if we were in Champions League, we could probably get to come to Arsenal. He wouldn't see Arsenal as a sidestep or even a backward step from Ajax, but because they have Champions League and they're top of their league, even though it's the Dutch league, would he want to come to Arsenal just to play in the Premier League when he could probably go to, Bayern or somebody? So I think about that in the summer window and all of that. And a big summer, in the way that I feel like a lot of people are defining it, would be with Champions League. But ultimately, I do think that we will get the players that we need as long as we're in Europa or higher. But the further we get, the more I'm starting to think, wow, we could potentially get top 4. And I think it would be a disappointment if we didn't, but not the end of the world, if that makes sense. CC says, I think the problem occurs if West Ham, Wolves, Spurs end up in that 4th position. Have you thought about that at all? I think that's kind of crossed my mind a couple of times. Like, if we don't get it, who's acceptable to get it above us? Like, you know what I mean? And I think if West Ham got it or Wolves, I think that's where I would feel a little bit like, yeah. Because, they're teams that we regard as, I know that sounds really bad, but kind of not at the same level as we are. You know what I mean? Have you thought about that at all? Like, okay, if we don't get it, as long as it's blank, it's fine. Because the reality is like, either it's going to be a team that we regard as way below us, or it's one of our closest rivals. Like, for me, Man United and Spurs are our rivals. I don't think Chelsea is a rival. I think those two. So I think it's going to hurt either way, isn't it? If it's not us.
Now, I think Wolves, just because of the way they started, would be a bit disappointing. West Ham, I mean, given the season, they have been quite good, but they're sort of up and down at the minute. To be honest, I'd be disappointed if anyone got it really, and we didn't, because I do think we've been good enough to really be in that position, and I don't think Spurs have been better than us. United haven't been better than us. I think West Ham are the only team at the moment that have probably been on par with any of the other top four contenders, and then I think they've even been on par in terms of Chelsea at times as well, in terms of just the way they've performed this season. So they're the only ones I'd be like, okay, like they're an outsider, but the way the season and the way they played, if they can continue that, then I'd be like, okay, it's a bit annoying, should I say? But I get it. Like it happens. There's always going to be that one team, but no, I just don't. I don't, for me, it's anyone getting above us is disappointing. But
Yeah.
so yeah, like I don't want to see anyone but our name at least in top four this season. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
100%, I'd be disappointed.
For sure. There's 130 of you guys watching. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's kind of go back to tomorrow's match, which obviously is against Brentford. Let's start with the form of both sides over the last six. Arsenal, we've won 4, we've lost 1, and we've drawn 1. So in the last 6, we've been pretty good. Brentford, 0 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw. Okay. Now, these statistics I find kind of interesting because this can kind of lead us into the conversation about how is this game going to be won or lost. And Brentford have conceded the joint most first half goals of any team in the Premier League this season. 59% of Arsenal's goals scored this season have been in the first half. No other team has a higher proportion in the first half of this season. So, like, okay, so there's a couple of things here. Where have we seen this before? Where a team hasn't won a game in so long and then plays against Arsenal, and then here we go, here's a win. And then there's this kind of nice little synergy here between Brentford being a bad first half team and us being a really good first half team. So is it safe to say that maybe it wouldn't be shocking if Arsenal came out quickly and got maybe 2 goals on Brentford early and put the game away, because they don't really start the games well and we tend to start games well, especially like at the Emirates? Is that how you think the game will go?
With Arsenal, it's difficult, isn't it? Because we miss a lot of chances, and I think that's one of our biggest issues is we're not clinical enough. There's so many games where we could have been 2, 3, 4, even like 5-0 up in the first half. Even if we halved it, we should have at least been 2-0 up in most of our games. So I don't know. We really need, the difficulty is how sharp is ESR and how sharp is, or whoever comes in for Martinelli, how sharp is that person, because he's kept whoever is destined to be on that left hand side out for a good few months now. So it's very difficult to really project like who that person may be, because it could be Pepe, it could be ESR. We don't know what Arteta's thinking or how he may be, wanting to plan this game to begin with. Then obviously we know Lacazette doesn't score goals. Saka's been sort of hit and miss, to be completely honest. So as long as we take our chances, this is anyone's game. But I do think a clinical Arsenal can beat any team 3-4-0. And that's very easily. But that's
You
if
mean
we
the
take
the
our chances.
Arsenal that we saw in December, essentially. That was a
Oh yeah, if
super
that Arsenal
clinical
turns up,
Arsenal. Yeah.
we smack them. And I'm talking the lead scoreline, and that's no disrespect of Brentford, but that's just because I think we can carve them open. But it's just whether we can take our chances. That's the hard part to say. But
Yeah.
we can get a 2-0, 3-0 first half kind of lead, or even concede one if anything. But we still should be comfortable going into that second half. So I hope that's the Arsenal that come out. It's a hope, isn't it?
It's definitely the hope. That's what I was saying at the beginning of this month, is that we need to see Arsenal of December, not Arsenal of January. And I have to say that the Wolves match didn't really make me feel one way or the other if I knew what Arsenal were looking at, because that was such a difficult away game. But at home against a team that we are superior to, we need to put them away. And there's some, some people that are like, well, how is this not going to be like Burnley? But I think that the difference is that first of all, we were tired. There was definitely some issues there with the team in terms of there wasn't enough legs. Lacazette was off of form. We didn't have our midfield. So there was quite a few things working against us in that respect. But like you said, we just weren't clinical. And we came out at a certain point in the Burnley match for about 20 minutes or so and just battered them and really tried to like get the goal, and it just didn't come. And so this is why I kind of feel like the first half is where it's going to be really important, because we start off really well. They start off really poorly. If we can get those 2 goals early, because it's going to probably take 2 goals, right? We can put them on the back foot and seal the game off. But if we leave it into the second half, then that's when it's going to start getting a little bit like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And we're not really a late goals type of team. We have to kind of start off well, and God forbid they score a goal. So we'll
There
definitely,
is one hope though.
yeah,
Ivan
go ahead.
Toney's in very high doubts in terms of whether he plays or not. He had a groin injury against Crystal Palace, and he's only had light training sessions from what Thomas Frank was telling the media. Now, this could all be mind games and he's actually completely fit, or it could actually be the truth in terms of he hasn't really trained, in which case there's one of two things. They either risk playing him not fully fit, or he comes off the bench, which is a huge benefit for us because the game could be so far gone in our favour that it doesn't really matter when they bring him on. So that's a benefit, and we know what Tony did to us in the game, So that's a benefit, but we do have Gabriel to deal with it this time. So it's one of those where it's a positive, but we do have the counteract and on the pitch as well. So it's a bit of a bonus there.
Happily Egg says Brentford like to press high. If your passing and shape is good, you can bypass Brentford's midfield. And so here's the thing, it's like we know that they like to press. We know that they are a physical team. That's something that is like well known. They're one of the most high tackling teams in the league, and they like to go back to front. They're a very direct team, so they're going to be looking for whoever they have up top to hold the ball up or flick it on, and then they'll go into space and then try to create that way. They're not really like they play nice football, but they're not really like a tiki-taka type of team. Like they're going to try to go very route one on you, but not in like that Burnley way where it's like, damn, like this is a little bit intense. Like it's not like that, but you know what I mean. So those are the things. And then there's also the fact that they usually play with a back 3/back 5, which has been something that against Wolves, we played against a back 3/back 5. And I wouldn't say that we struggled, but we know that we can struggle against that with the offense that we have. So let's start to build the lineup knowing what Brentford are good at and what we're good at, players that could be missing, and those types of things. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me read this really quick, though. Yo-Yo says Brentford are a promoted side who struggle scoring. They're cannon fodder. Kurumi says, I hope we no-go with a revenge. We going to lose. What? Am6 says Emil Smith Rowe finally get a chance to start. Okay, so and we'll start off with this one because this is where we're gonna kind of start. We know Ramsdale is gonna start, but the question is, Jess, do you think Cedric will play instead of Tomiyasu? So I'll go ahead and put Ramsdale in here, and kind of going back to what we spoke about at the beginning, we both kind of said let's not risk Tomiyasu. So what is the solution here? Do we play Rob Holding? He had a really good game against Wolves. Do we play him and Ben White as the right back, or do we go with Cedric as right back and keep Ben White? Also we know that they're really good in the air. So if they do they actually score like 40, almost 50% of their goals come off of set pieces. So would Holding be an asset in that regard? What do you think about that scenario?
I'm a strong believer of don't weaken two positions just to benefit the one. So for me, it's got to be um, a situation where you bring Cedric in, just have a natural fullback, because we are gonna need someone to really go at them as well on the other side. And because they play this sort of 3-5 back hybrid, we're gonna need an extra man just to support Saka, just to have a distraction or a man that can magnetize another fullback or a defender to draw space. So that's the way I would do it personally. Just because White and Gabriel are just too instrumental in that centre for the way we build up as well, in terms of the amount of pressure he alleviates with the playing out the back, Ramsdale playing it into White, and the way he can sort of cut defenders and cut the midfield to play balls or even make those runs. So for me, don't weaken two positions just to benefit the one position. So yeah, I'd go. Unfortunately, I would go with Cedric. Actually, not even unfortunately. I want Cedric to play, just because I think he offers us the attacking, but it's just defensively, can we structure ourselves in a good way to kind of cover for Cedric's deficiencies? But that would be the question. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think with I agree with you about not weakening two positions. And, I know Arteta had very complimentary things to say about Rob Holding post the Wolves match, but at the same time, like, as good as he played and as good as we know he is with his head, I just feel like we're going to have a lot of the possession. And with the few attacks that they should have, we should be able to handle them on set pieces. And so I wouldn't, like you said, I wouldn't weaken, because also the building up out of the back and all that kind of stuff, Ben White does that very well. We don't really want Holding being the main guy back there. Thomas Frank is smart enough to know that if Rob Holding is standing back there with the ball, they'll not only press him, but they'll force us into using him as our outlet or as our distribution from back there, and that's really not what we want. So I tend to agree. So this is kind of what we're looking at: is Cedric, White, Gabriel, and Ramsdale. Now, I've seen some conversations, heard some conversations around Tierney, and there was fans that felt like Tierney was not good against Wolves. There's questions around Tierney again and his form. Is he giving us enough in the attack? And, for me, I'm always tend to say, like, well, when we played our best, we played with Tierney. And I think he was a big part of that. He may go in and out of his best form throughout the season, but ultimately I think his standard is so steady that you kind of know what you're going to get. And it may not be as exciting as somebody else. It may not be as robust as somebody else, but he's going to be solid, especially because I don't think he's going to be doing a ton of defending in this game. But that conversation has kind of come up again. And some people want to see Tavares start this match because it's at home, and we are lacking in attack, and Tierney is not really giving us as much as like what people would want. Now, when I look at it, because I know that left wing is going to be changed, I'm not sure I want to change what's behind it just because Tierney didn't have a great game against Wolves. But what do you think?
No, especially well, we'll get on to who the left wing is later, but because of who I want to put in there, I think it's got to be Tierney, just because that pairing will be very complementary. And I think because, sort of Martinelli likes to hold the width and sometimes goes central, but he is someone who kind of holds his position very well. It's got to be Tierney for me. Defensively, yes, I've had a few questions in his Arsenal career in terms of stopping crosses coming in. But in terms of, what you're going to get, he's going to do the cutbacks, and he is someone who's going to support in attack and defense. Whereas with Tavares, I do worry a little bit sometimes. Brilliant going forward, but just defensively, he's a very in and out of the game kind of player. Like sometimes, yeah, he can have brilliant tackles and he can recover really well. But then there's also that very stupid moment in him that can cost you the game. So we need reliability, just because we do have Cedric on the other side, who is a defensive liability. Whereas with Tierney, somewhat does cover it well. He's a well-rounded fullback. So for me, don't start weakening and tweaking like 5-6 positions in a team. We've already got enough changes coming in. We need to keep as much of the 11 stable to keep going forward, because we know when we've done 3, maybe 4 changes, how bad it can turn out. So
Yeah.
limit the changes, and with the other change coming in the team, I do think Tierney will see his better form, especially attackingly. So yeah, for me, it has to be Tierney. It's the only logical choice.
If Tomiyasu had already been playing, like, and hadn't been hurt, I might have thought about it. And the reason why I say this is not because I don't think Tierney has done much wrong. I know that some days he plays well and some days he doesn't. I still think our best period in the season has come when he's played at left back. But these are the types of games where I feel like we need to look at. I mean, this is just me. I think within these next 15, 16 games or whatever it is, we're going to have to look at certain players to step in. And I would like to see us give some minutes to some players that aren't really seeing a lot of game time. In particular, Tavares, because we know how Tierney's fitness is, Lukonga, because we know how Thomas's fitness is, and Pepe, because we need more goals. Now, when that happens is important. And this is why getting up 2-3-0 up on a Brentford is really important, going to Watford and getting up a couple goals, because that's the only time we're going to be able to give them game time. So what I would like to see is if we get up 2-3-0, to take Tierney off and give Tavares some minutes. Take Thomas off, give Lukonga some minutes. Take Saka off, give Pepe some minutes, because they're no use to us if they haven't played in like 5 games. And we know when it comes, because it's going to come, where we'll have a couple players out at the same time, or we're going to be playing 3 games in a 6-day period. We know that's coming up because of where they rescheduled the Liverpool match. These players will need to play. So my devil's advocate for this is not to start Tavares necessarily, but this is where I'd like to see Arteta be a little bit more flexible. And if we get far enough ahead, to start rotating and giving people minutes so they're not so outside of the team. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, no, because this is actually going to be one of our sort of shorter breaks in the coming, because it's going to be 6 days in between, 5 days in between us and playing Wolves. So yeah, we do need to be a bit smart in the game management and minute management, in terms of how we play our players, especially Tierney, because we do know he suffers from muscular injuries, and monitoring his minutes is really important, especially when things become congested. Because we've got 24th, the 6th of March, then the 13th. And then we've got another game on the 16th and the 19th. So that's going to be a period where we'll play Leicester on the 13th. We'll play Liverpool on the 16th. Then on the 19th, we'll play Villa. 3 games that are going to be somewhat tough for us. Villa showing good form, Leicester showing good form, and then obviously Liverpool, we know who Liverpool are. So we're going to need him for that. And that's a very congested time. So if we can manage his minutes better, where we're 2-0 up, 3-0 up, Tavares just to come on, just shut the game off and actually push them back as well and give fresh legs. It's important.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my only point, is they don't have to start, but we need to start. Is that's something that I don't think we did at the first half of the season very well, is once Arteta got kind of hooked on his starting 11, like Tavares and Lukonga didn't really get as much time, enough minutes, neither did Pepe. And then so when we were forced to use them, they didn't have any juice, like they weren't ready to go. And so that's something that I would like to say. But we have to be at least 2 or 3 goals up in order to do that. So it's all contingent on how well we play to start off, and to get 2 or 3 goals up, I think you need to start your best 11. So let's keep moving here. So something that's been interesting over the last couple of games is that we've seen that Arteta has kind of slowly moved into this 4-3-3 kind of formation. We've seen against Wolves in particular that Granit Xhaka and Odegaard were pushed up and a little bit more wide. And they were in triangles with the fullbacks and the forwards. And Thomas Partey was alone in midfield as a single pivot. I wonder, like, I do think like George pushed back on this, but I personally think we're moving into a 4-3-3 slowly but surely. This is kind of what happened at the beginning of last season when we moved to a 4-2-3-1 before we were ready. And this feels like that. A little bit of that to me. So I'm going to leave it as a 4-3-3 right now in terms of the formation. But I think this pretty much picks itself, doesn't it? Like, we don't foresee anything different in
No,
the
no, my
midfield
boy El
area.
Nenny's back in it, so he's going to play in it.
He better not touch the pitch, I'm telling you. I know
Ah,
he
you
was
better.
good, but
Yeah, he's the best Egyptian in the world,
oh my
which makes him the
goodness.
best player in the world at the minute because people are saying Salah's the best. But I do think a certain Egyptian is better. But hey, we'll move.
I can't. Okay, so is it safe to say that Bukayo Saka will start as right wing?
Yeah, I don't see why not because he's had enough of a rest, I think. So
Yeah. All right, so here we go. This is where it gets a little bit more interesting. So the conversation around left wing, I think, Martinelli has made that his position, and he kind of got in there because ESR was not fit, and he made it his own. And now, because of his suspension, he's given ESR kind of a little bit of an opening here. And I think because ESR is a favorite, and he was really the catalyst, along with Saka, but really the catalyst for the back end of last season for us to start going into playing a lot better. People want to see ESR in the team. He's also one of our highest scorers, so that's a part of it as well. But I personally haven't felt as though he's done much to displace Martinelli. So now he has this opening. But some people want to see Pepe. And I wonder what your thoughts are on that, because Pepe played very well. I'm not going to say very well. I'm going to say he played well in the African Cup of Nations, and he has goals in him. And a lot of people feel like he's played best on the left. So do you think that I feel like there's no possible chance that Arteta starts Pepe over ESR? But what are your thoughts on ESR, him getting him back into the team, and what does he have to show? Because he's been unlucky lately, because a lot of the times when he's come on, we've been down a man. So, but I have to say that against Wolves, I found him to be he left me wanting. He really did, because he didn't have a lot of energy when he was running down the pitch with the ball. They were catching up with him and taking the ball off of him quite easily. So I think this is a big game for ESR, but what does he need to show in this match? And do you think there should also be an opening for Pepe to start getting some minutes as well? Even if it's not on the left, even if it's just to come in for Bukayo Saka, don't we have to start using him at some point?
no, 100%. I think Pepe is going to be that sort of under the radar pivotal player to help us get top four. And I know that sounds crazy after the criticism we've given him, but the reason I say that is because I do see a goal in him, but I don't see him as a starter. I see him someone who can make an impact off the sub when the game isn't quite going your way. Sort of what ESR did, when Martinelli first displaced him, came on, got his goal, and that's what I see Pepe. I just see Pepe as that. I don't see him in build up. I don't see him being a good transition player. He is just someone just give him a moment not to think and he'll do something. But the minute you start to involve him in the game too much, he's not that player. He can't provide you with anything. But when the game's a little bit more open and you've got an opportunity to kill the game off, should we say, especially at Brentford, where they do push up, they do like to press, and they do leave gaps in behind. And Pepe, coming off the bench with his energy and his pace can be very crucial to the way we play. And this is why I say sometimes, you've got to manage the game before the game. And Pepe can be that player who can come in and make an impact. And the reason what I want to see from ESR is just more of what he did at the beginning of the season before Martinelli came in. Someone who just couldn't be dropped. You can't drop him because he was too crucial to the way we built up. He was, a ball carrier. He was, protecting the ball. One of our most technically secured players, the best dribbler, well, statistically anyway, the best dribbler in the league. And we need to see a bit more of that. We need to see his proactiveness, his ability to get into the game and influence the game, because he's flattered to deceive. And this is even in the sort of League Cup and the FA Cup when he did play. When he started, he looked horrid. He didn't. Every time he touched the ball, it turned to shit. And this is in the most respectful way. And I'm not trying to put him under the bus or anything, but he didn't look good. And every time I seen him, I was like, well, yeah, you've not really stated a claim to say, Martinelli, you're on the bench because I've done this. So it's crucial. It's not even about getting a goal or an assist. It's about showing what we're missing by bringing a Martinelli in, and that's got to be the question answered. And it's got to be wow, we didn't. And if he gets a couple of goals and an assist, he could be doing what Martinelli did to him, where Martinelli then needs to fight back to get his spot. But there's obviously that conversation of whether Martinelli becomes the striker, and that'll obviously be a conversation in the future. But yeah, he needs to do better. Is the simple answer.
Yeah, and I hear, there's questions, well, he's your top scorer, so how could he be like, how could we be so harsh? Like, the reality is that, like, there's a reason why he's our top scorer, but he's not playing, it's because he's not showing, like, there's more to the match than just scoring the goals. And obviously scoring goals is the hardest thing to do, you know, in the game. But in the month of January, for me, ESR was off. Like, he just was. When he came on, he was off. And so I would like to see him get back to the guy that can kind of dribble through and get into space. And we saw a glimpse of it against Burnley. I don't know why Arteta took him out, but he had that one run that he made. And ESR is also showing more like wanting to take more shots and stuff like that. So I think as long as he shows the same type of like tenacity and stuff that Martinelli does, but also gives us the ESR part of him that Martinelli doesn't have, because they're two completely different players. But
We just need
ESR,
ESR pre-injury. It's not even
yeah,
about being Martinelli's a
pre-injury, yeah.
different breed of player. Like he's
Yeah, pre-injury. That makes a lot of sense. And so I think ESR definitely starts. I do think that if we get up 2 or 3 goals, I'd like to see Pepe come in for Saka on the right-hand side. But ESR definitely does start. And there are some questions around Lacazette and Martinelli. So we'll get to those in a second. But make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the Hoiberg.
no.
The wrong one. All right. So let's see. Let me get to those really quick. I starred them. So, Eagle-Eyed Football asked, would Lacazette and Martinelli be enough for you to get top four, like get over the line in the top four race? And that also kind of piggybacks with Blaze's question about our thoughts on Martinelli playing as a striker in training. Do you think this is being worked for us to get into the top four? So when do you think we'll see Martinelli in the 9 position? Do you think it's something that Arteta is thinking about using now, or is it just for next season? Is it an option because we don't have enough goals in the team? I personally think that Lacazette and his ability to put away the couple of chances that he does get may be the difference between top four or not, because he's missing quite a bit of sitters. We kind of need those to go in. And everything else he does is great, but we need him to put the ball in the back of the net. But Martinelli, can he? Okay, so do you think we'll see Martinelli in the number 9 position this season? And do you think Martinelli can do the things that Lacazette is doing, but also add the goals to it? Do we over-index what Lacazette gives us in the hold-up play and all of that? Would it be more beneficial just to have somebody that can put it in the back of the net that's also tenacious? I mean, it's not like Martinelli hasn't really improved with his technical ability and stuff like that, right?
You'll get a different dynamic. It's got to be a different sort of tactical approach to the game. I do think, obviously, when we let's just look at this 11, because obviously, realistically, the only change is Tomiyasu. But this is the sort of 11 we'd see if we put Martinelli up top. Now, we know ESR can drop in and do that Lacazette role. We know Saka can come on the other side and drop in and do that Lacazette hybrid role on both sides. The only difference will be we're utilizing sort of Martinelli, but Martinelli does drop deeper now. He understands the game deeper and how to drive the ball forward. The only major difference that possibly comes is maybe the link up. Maybe the link up play isn't going to be as good as what Lacazette can offer, but the difference is going to be someone who can drive from the midfield and take the ball forward, or come into midfield and do that. But naturally, what you'll also get is, if you're looking at the sort of chances we've given, like the Gabriel through ball to Lacazette, Martinelli puts that away. Martinelli will be clinical in those opportunities. Even when we're looking at the missed header where he completely misses the ball, I do believe Martinelli at least gets that on target. So the question comes down to if he gets there. I don't see it, but I hope he does, because He's a lot more clinical and he's a lot better of a striker than people are making out. He's a heads down winger, which is perfect for a striker. He's not someone who likes to look up. He's not, for me, I don't see him as a winger. Yeah, he's done well, but I think we're clouding that with a lot of his weaknesses as well because he's scored goals, because he's done this. But I'm not going to lie, his delivery from the left hand side has been shocking. Some of his crossing decisions have been shocking. He should have looked up a lot earlier to make that ball to potentially get us a goal. That's why I see him as a striker more than I see him as a left wing. And obviously, with ESR's ability to drive and play that ball in, who do I want on the end of that ball? It's going to be Martinelli. I don't see like I don't know what it is with like I don't know if it's confidence. I don't know whether it's I don't know what it is because he's not this bad. He can be a good goal scorer. I know that sounds bizarre to say, but he's a better striker than we're seeing right now. But I don't know what seemed to have gotten into him. But that's what I hope for because if we're looking at this 11, it's perfect for Martinelli to come up top.
I guess my thing is like what's so important at the moment is what happens when those players that we feel like we can't live without are not there, and especially at the back end of the season. So we need a plan B that we feel comfortable with if Lacazette's not available, right? And that option that is not Nketiah. That is not Eddie Nketiah. It is not. And so we don't want him coming in. So I think the best possible thing that the club can be doing is working with Martinelli as a number 9. And quite frankly, at home, I wouldn't be too upset or too scared if I saw Martinelli starting as a number 9, like in this setup. Like I wouldn't feel any type of way. It's just like if we had to drop Lakanga in there, we would feel relatively okay as long as you had Xhaka and Odegaard. You'd feel okay if you had to drop Tavares in there. We have some options, but do I see it happening like right away? No. But the fact that we keep hearing about it, I think it will happen at some point in the season. We just don't know when. And I think it'll be when Lacazette cannot play because I can't see a scenario where Lacazette starts on the bench and Martinelli starts through the middle and Lacazette's supposed to be your new captain to the end of the season. I just feel like that might, not go over well. So I think it's if Lacazette's not available, but he should be available for tomorrow's match. And so I'm going to go ahead and put him in the striker role, even though he ain't striking. He needs a goal. He needs a goal. Like he needs air, I think. Like he's just forgotten that he's a striker, and it's just some of the misses that he's had are just so almost like embarrassingly bad. And so he needs a goal, but I'm more looking at the two guys on either side of him and also Odegaard. I think they need to start scoring goals again, because Gabriel scored the last goal that we scored. We didn't score any goals in January, bar the Saka goal against City. So they need to start scoring goals again. You know what I'm saying? But so let's do some score predictions. And then I want to ask how many points from the next 5. So what do you think the score is going to be of tomorrow's game?
It's so hard. I'm torn because I see this going one of two ways. Either they come in sort of solid defensive and we would nick this 1-0. Or they could be that super expansive team that we've also seen Brentford being, and we could go win this like 3-0, 3-1. But I'm good. All right, so all day I've been saying 3-1 to myself, and I think that's the scoreline I've got to stick with. So I'm going to say 3-1. Your goal scorers or?
All right. Well, you guys go ahead and get your score predictions up there, but I'm going to go 2-0 to the Arsenal. I think we'll score 2 goals relatively quickly. I don't see them scoring on us. I think our defense is too good. So I think I want the game to go the way that I think it's going to go. Like I need it to be 2-0. Like I literally need it in early as well. So I'm going to go with 2-0. I think the reality of this game is that it's whatever we want it to be. I think we hold the cards to it. I don't think there's much that Brentford could bring to us that would be like a shock. We know what they are. We know what their quality is, but if we go out there and play like we did in December, this game could be whatever we want it to be. But if we go out there and we have a Burnley type game, it could be really rough, and that's really not what you want to see. Don One says 3-1. Ham6 says 3-1 to the Arsenal. Elliot Roberts says 2-0 to the Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners. Dublin Gooner says 2-0 to the Arsenal. Tony says 3-0 to the Arsenal. ESR goal contribution hat trick. Okay. Love that. Rohit says 2-0 to the Arsenal. We have no business conceding at home to Brentford. That's kind of how I feel as well. Like, how are they scoring on us? And we have like a clean sheet record in terms of not getting scored on set pieces, I think, or corners. So that can't happen tomorrow. Like, Brentford are very open at times. Johnny Boy says 1-1 for me. I'm unhappy to report. Hope you're wrong. Yo-Yo says 3-0, lock a brace, and 34 free kick. Yeah, hell no. You know that's not gonna
That's
happen.
like a gender scoreline, isn't it?
Okay. So somebody was like, if there was one player that could score the goal that sends us into the Champions League, who would it be? And why is it Bukayo Saka? And I said, like, it needs to be Granit Xhaka, doesn't it? Like, it needs to be Granit Xhaka. Like, it has to
That's
be.
written in it. That's just like written in the stars.
It
Like,
has
last
to
game of
be.
the season is Xhaka on the free. Do you know, like that David Beckham moment, that iconic David Beckham moment at Wembley?
Yeah.
I've got a feeling it's written in the stars. Your final game of the season, Xhaka's over a free kick. This can send him into the top four. It can get him into the Champions League. It's Granit Xhaka. He does it for the Arsenal. And yeah, I just got that weird commentary in my head now.
No, literally, that would be so funny. Like, if it was Granit Xhaka. Okay, let me read some more of these out. 2-2. Dev says 1-0. Funky Bunky says 3-0. Abrima says 4-0. Camisile says 2-1 to the Arsenal. Yeah, like, amazing.
Fairly positive, yeah.
Billy Boy says 2-0 Saka and ESR. Yeah, it's either Xhaka or Party on a long ball, but also I would accept Tomiyasu as well. Like, if Tomiyasu's first goal for Arsenal like was sent us into Champions League, because we just love Tommy, right? But more than anything, I would take Granit Xhaka, like just one of those long shots that he takes that never go in. One of those, I would take that. Oh, imagine it's like Eddie and Ketia. Imagine, oh my gosh, call Eddie. Amazing.
Oh, you'll get a new contract in it if that happened.
Oh my gosh, no. So we don't want it to be Eddie, do we?
Arteta
Yeah.
already wants to give him one. So imagine that. Hey, but you got Champions League. You want 100k? Here's 100k for you.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so just to round off the show here is I want to know how many points you think we're going to get from the next 5 matches. So maybe I should pull it up, huh? Give me 1 second. I will pull it up. But I think it's interesting because now that they threw that Liverpool one in, it's looking a little tough. It really is looking a little more tough than it did before. 1 second. Arsenal fixtures. All right. Here we go. All right. So we have. Where's Brentford? Oh, Brentford tomorrow. Wolves at home. Watford away. Leicester at home. Liverpool at home. And Aston Villa away. So that rounds off March. But the thing about these 3 matches now is that we play 3 matches in 6 days. So this right here is kind of like going to be death. But we play 2 of those matches at home. But this is still going to be a really difficult run. So what are you thinking? Like, that's 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So the next 6, how many points do you think we're going to get for the next 6?
All wins except Liverpool.
Okay, let's do this again. How many points do you think we're going to get? Are you really think we're going to win all those except for
All right,
Liverpool.
I've got two. So the only other game I see as like dropping points is probably Wolves, but I think the rest of them are wins. I think we've got too much on Leicester. I think our firepower, the way we attack, they just never seem to do good against us. Watford are just trash at the minute. They are really poor. I just think we've got a number on them. They were tougher to play when we played them in the Emirates, and the setup they had then, they look even worse now. They look a lot more open. So I'd say 3 against Brentford. The minimum I'm expecting from Wolves is a point. I don't think we completely lose the points, but that's the only other game I see us dropping points in. Watford, I expect us to beat. Leicester, I'm expecting us to beat. Liverpool is the only game I have fucking no idea what way that's going to go. Whether we win, lose, or draw, anything can happen in that game. And then Aston Villa, I'm expecting that they're a tough team, but I do expect us to win that. So I'd say all. I say all wins, maybe a draw against Wolves, but I'm hoping to win that. And then just the only game I see us sort of losing and being fine with losing is Liverpool.
Okay. So I think we're gonna beat Brentford, so that's 3. I think we're going to draw at home to Wolves. I think they'll try to get a little bit of revenge. I think it's gonna be a difficult game. So that's 4. 3 more against Watford. Barely like a 1-0. So that's 7. I think we'll beat Leicester because they're just horrendous defensively. So that's 10. We'll lose to Liverpool and we'll draw Aston Villa away from home.
So 13. So you're. Oh wait, did you say draw? So 11.
Yeah, I think we'll get 11. And so 11 to 13, because I think it depends. The game that I'm kind of wavering on a little bit is Aston Villa away. I'm being conservative now and saying that we'll draw. But from what I've seen from them, to be honest, there's a lot of this going on, but they're not winning a lot of games. They're really not. And so as much as they have kind of like revitalized themselves and all that kind of stuff, that back line is very shaky. And Danny Ings and Ollie Watkins are really struggling for goals. So that could be one where we go away from home, we get a 1-0, or we draw 0-0 or 1-1 or 2-2 or something like that. But I'm going in between 11 to 13 points in this round here.
Yeah,
fair
we
enough.
somewhat agree. Yeah, because I'm on 13 if we drop points to Wolves. But yeah, I do see us beating Villa for some reason. But the main thing is staying consistent. Like it to me, it's like it looks bad when we're dropping points, but then if everyone else is dropping equally or more points than us, then it doesn't look too bad. But these are the kinds of games where we need to be taking advantage of them. So yeah, I think the Liverpool one's the only one where I'm a bit like I don't know where this result's going, whereas the others I'm quite confident. I somewhat sit in an okay position with.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we're in a good position. This is kind of where we need to rack up the points, though. Like, this is really where, like, I think one of Wolves or Leicester kind of have to swing our way. Like, we need one of those to be a win, I think. Even though, like, I think we could potentially draw both. One of those, I think, if you could nick a win and then everything else happen the same, then we're really in the driver's seat before we get into a really difficult period. Newsflash, you guys, they're going to put that Tottenham match in May. That thing is going to be like all the playoff for the top 4. But if we can gain some like momentum and get kind of past them, that won't be, because I'm telling you guys right now, 100%, if that game is in May and it's one of the last matches of the season and it's us versus Spurs for the top 4 and it's a 6-pointer and whoever doesn't win doesn't get it, I'm not surviving it. I'm not surviving it. I'm not surviving it. I'm telling you. Like, I'm not surviving that. Are you surviving that, Souls? Are you making
Oh
it?
hell no, no
Like,
chance. I know Spurs
come
fans are
on.
coming for me. They are coming in their packs.
Yeah. Yeah, and Don one, I do understand that we beat both Wolves and Leicester at home, away from home. So that should mean that we beat them at home. But I have this weird feeling that Wolves are going to be like really like chomping at the bit because they felt like
But
we
that
didn't
could get
deserve
them a
to
red
win or
card.
something.
We need to play. This is where we can be like the masters of the dark art and play on that emotion, because when a team comes for revenge, they come for revenge and they're a bit more aggressive, they're a bit more physical, and you can play into the emotions. So we've got to be able to take advantage of the fact they're coming in with emotion, because when you play with emotion, you make mistakes. So we need to capitalize on that.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we do these little predictions and they always end up being completely different. But
Yeah.
the most important match is the one tomorrow. We both think that we're going to win it. Hopefully we do. Player ratings right after the match. You know, guys know I always go to the terrace first and then right after the match, like 30 minutes after the match, go through player ratings. So make sure you guys join us back here at that time. Hopefully we're talking about a win. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you guys want to follow us, you can. Here are our names at Jacinho Tweets and at SheKnowsArsenal and at Gunnar Souls. Yeah. Thank you guys for joining us on this Friday. Don't get blown away. We will talk to you guys on the next one. Bye guys.